Okay, today I'm reviewing the Coven, which is a Lamentations of the Flame Princess compatible product that someone made, and it's not available in hard copy. Just had to get the PDF and print it out. It's a real shame that it's not available in hard copy. It's written by, if we can get it to focus here, Jesse Geroy, layout by him, and edited by Matthew Siegel, inspired by Evelyn Moreau's Vagina or Magic Coven sessions. Okay, so here's a table of contents, and it's got a lot of great public domain art, which is what I really wish that it were available in hard copy. So, the Coven has 12 archetypal witches. Yeah, this is a module for a bunch of first level magic users. It's an all magic user adventure. A bunch of first level female magic users, and each of them fits an archetype. And so what I did is I created an NPC for every single one of these, and I gave them a spell book that had three first level spells, and I divided the three first level spells up so that every single first level spell, at least one of them would have it. But then the players came in. The players would adopt one of these archetypes, and for them, they would roll attributes, because the NPCs had attributes of 10. They'd roll attributes, and they would pick spells. In some cases, they rolled random spells, but as a result of that, there were certain first-level spells that nobody had anymore because they had picked, for example, the only one who could do detect magic, and they didn't pick that as their spell, so now nobody could do that. So there's these archetypes to pick from, and then there's your sovereign. I picked the sovereign for them. You could randomly pick it, but I picked it because of the past history of turning Pincher the lobster into a god. I wanted Pincher to be their god, their grand sovereign for this, who they worship. And each of these has some place where they like to worship, a requirements about what their altar consists of, and the Grand Rite is a particular spell. Now, most of these are from the book Vaginas Are Magic, but two of them are new, and I picked one of the new ones for this. So they turned out to be of nightmares and salt water, which their keywords are sorcery, nightmares, secrets, ocean depths, and dreaming. And their site of worship had to be on the shoreline of an ocean or upon a blasted heath. Their altar was a large, shallow bowl made of beaten brass filled with salt water. And their grand rite was a spell called Dream of Old Boats. And every player got a randomly picked witch mark. And yeah, if anybody ever found that, that would be proof that they're a witch. And then they had, the way this campaign works is every month they have to do a ritual. And for this ritual, they have to have a particular style of dress, like nude or black hooded robes, or the clothes of men, or covered in blood. And they had to perform a particular sacrifice, like the tears of a child, or the blood of a virgin to be bathed in, or eyes of a blind man, or teeth of 7 different mammals. And then they had to perform a particular celebratory act, like ritual purification in smoke, or furious drumming, or mass hysteria, dancing around open flame, silent meditation, things like that, okay? So these things are supposed to be hard to do. It's hard to get all of this together You know, for example, they got to have elaborate jewelry, but they start off dirt poor, so acquiring elaborate jewelry could be a difficulty. I did randomly let them have the style of dress for their first time, so they could have that. But if that turned out to be the wrong thing, then they would not, they'd be out of luck. So it's hard to do this, but if they succeed, they get 1,000 experience points. And you have to do this on the full moon, and as a result of doing this ritual, they can put a curse, a random curse, on a particular named individual of their village. So I had to create a whole village full of NPCs who would act in such a ways that the players would have grudges against them and have somebody they want to curse. Okay, so every time they leveled up, instead of getting a book in their spell book, getting a spell in their spell book like you do in new school games, this is an old school game where you only get spells if you find a scroll or a spell book and copy it. But every time they went up in level, they'd get a dark gift. This would be a random spell that they could cast, and they could risky cast, but they couldn't, it wasn't in their spell book, so they couldn't share it with somebody unless they went to the trouble of researching it and adding it to their spell book. And each player would get a different one of these. And some of these are randoms, and some of them are cleric spells, like Cure Light Wounds and Heal. Okay. There were also enemies in their village. Enemies of each of the basic classes. First of all, there's a church. In their case, there was no church because I randomly determined that the church is a burned out husk, and the church was local Protestant leaders who would lead prayer service. I divided the village evenly between Anglicans and Puritans who take turns leading the service. Then there's the law. The agents of the law are fighters, and they run the jail. Then there's the guilds, the specialists, and in this village's case, the guild's hall was a sweatshop linen factory where they would grow flax locally, and then they would turn it into linen cloth. And then there's the learned men. The village has a library run by the learned men, who are male magic users who think women shouldn't do magic. And I had their spells be the kind of things that such people would have, like identify and book speak. Okay, so every single NPC had a randomly determined virtue and vice based on the 7 deadly sins. So, okay, now, Vital Loathsome Home. So, there's a random village generator included in this. So, even if you don't want to run the Coven storyline, it's still a useful thing for making random villages. The library is something random, the jail is something random, the tavern is something random, the guild hall is something random, the church is something random, the village square is something random. And you can roll one of each kind of die all at once and generate this really quickly. And okay, and that's just the village itself. But there's also the surrounding land. There's near the village, there's a convent, randomly determined. There's a graveyard, randomly determined. In my village's case, there was a plague pit. They just would, an ancient plague pit. No one quite knows how many bodies are in it or how deep it goes, and they just throw bodies down it. There's the encampment, which is a group of soldiers wandering the land who are nearby. There's a Crossroads Inn. In this village's case, the Crossroads Inn was an abandoned inn that was supposed to be haunted, and for that I used the house from The Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh. So I got to run that as part of this module when I was running it. And the Mysterium, there's something strange. And then there's the geography of the land. What's around here? So, okay. So here it goes into the structure of the game. There are some random things that you throw at the players which make it more difficult for them. I did this every single month, so every single month there'd be some random obstacle to prevent them from doing their grand rite. Here is more detail about the random virtues and vices of every single NPC. Randomly, they might roll humility, and then there were 6 different possibilities for humility they might have, or chastity, abstinence, prudence, kindness, charity, diligence, pride, envy, gluttony, wrath, lust, greed, and sloth. And so here's a random villager name generator. I used this for some, but I also made up some names for this. So basically, when you're running this, you're running an evil party, and the players are terrorizing the village, which culminates in them casting their first spell on a mass number of the villagers, as many as possible, in one huge thing. After 7 months, they do this. Okay, so there's this new spell they had, which this is the one I chose for the players. It was Dream of Old Boats, and it would de-evolve the target. And so they did this to the whole village and create a bunch of things. And it even has its own miscast chart here, which I haven't gotten to use that yet. Flower Skin is another original spell that they might have. And there's quite a long bibliography here, so go back to the top. The Coven. It's an interesting module for a group of first level magic users, female magic users. And if they complete the whole thing, they end up with 7,000 experience points at the end, which puts them about 3rd level. And so I did this after running the GDQ series. Everybody started with a new character, first level magic user, and they played those until they all died one by one after this. In fact, one of them disappeared in the midst of running this and just recently reappeared. And then they would create new characters after their Coven characters died. So that's a Coven. Interesting module.